This moment you are in right now is not ordinary, and it is not accidental. There is a reason you are hearing this message at this exact time, with these exact words. According to the message carried by Archangel Michael, a blessing is already moving toward you. Not waiting to be created, not still being decided in heaven, but already released and already in motion. Yet here is the solemn truth that must be spoken with clarity and urgency. Even a blessing that is on its way can be blocked. Not by God, not by fate, but by doubt and delay. What you do right now, how you respond in this very season, decides everything. Many people assume blessings arrive only when life feels calm, when confidence is strong, and when all questions are answered. But heaven rarely works that way. Often, the greatest blessings begin moving when the soul is tired, when the mind is uncertain, and when the path ahead feels unclear. Archangel Michael's message is both a reassurance and a warning. The reassurance is this: you have not been forgotten. Your prayers were heard. Your tears were counted. Your silent endurance mattered. Something has already shifted in the unseen realm on your behalf. But the warning is just as real. If you allow doubt to take root, or if you keep delaying the step you know you must take, you can slow, divert, or even miss what is coming. Right now, there is spiritual activity around your life that you cannot see with natural eyes. Decisions are converging. Doors are aligning. Timing is narrowing. Heaven is not confused about you, but it is watching how you respond. Doubt does not usually arrive loudly. It comes quietly, disguised as logic, caution, or waiting for the right moment. Delay often feels harmless, even wise. But in spiritual matters, unnecessary delay can become disobedience in disguise. Archangel Michael speaks into this tension because this is the point where many people lose momentum. Not because they were unworthy, but because they hesitated at the threshold. You may feel an internal pressure right now, a sense that something needs to change, that a decision cannot be postponed much longer. That feeling is not anxiety, it is urgency. It is the awareness that time is active. Heaven operates in appointed moments, and some moments do not repeat in the same form. This does not mean God abandons you if you hesitate, but it does mean that the path can become longer, heavier, and more painful than it needed to be. What is moving toward you is connected to your willingness to trust before you see evidence. Archangel Michael's presence in this message is significant. He is associated with protection, courage, and spiritual warfare. When his message carries urgency, it is because there is resistance in the unseen realm. Not because you are weak, but because what is coming carries weight. Blessings that change direction, identity, or calling are rarely uncontested. That becomes the easiest access point for interference. Delay becomes the slow erosion of confidence. And over time, what was meant to arrive with power arrives muted, or is postponed altogether. This is why the message is not simply about encouragement. It is about decision. You are standing in a narrow window where awareness has been given to you for a reason. The question is not whether the blessing exists. It does. The question is whether you will align with it while it is still approaching. Faith, in this moment, is not about feeling fearless. It is about moving forward, even while uncertainty tries to speak. Faith is choosing trust over analysis when you already know what you have been asked to do. Do not misunderstand this message as condemnation. It is not meant to pressure you with fear, but to awaken you with truth. Heaven does not rush you, but it does respond to readiness. When you hesitate out of fear, you send a mixed signal. When you delay out of comfort, you slow the flow. But when you choose, even trembling, you create alignment. Archangel Michael's message carries this clarity because clarity is mercy. You are being told now so you can respond now. Something is already unfolding behind the scenes. Conversations you are not part of yet. Arrangements you have not seen yet. Openings that require your agreement to fully manifest. What blocks blessings most often is not sin, not failure, not weakness, but indecision. The inability to step when the signal has been given. And the signal has been given to you. Right now, you are closer than you think. The distance between where you are and what is coming is not measured in time alone, but in trust. Doubt lengthens the road. Delay complicates the journey. But courage is sure in the distance. Obedience clears the path. This is why the message says, what you do right now decides everything. Not someday, not later. Now, as you listen, something within you already knows this is true. There is a recognition in your spirit, a quiet confirmation that this moment matters more than others before it. That recognition is not coincidence. It is invitation. In the parts that follow, you will begin to understand what this blessing is responding to, how doubt works against it, and what actions realign you with heaven's timing. But for now, let this truth settle deeply. A blessing is already moving toward you, and heaven is watching how you respond in this moment. What you must understand now is this. The blessing Archangel Michael speaks of is not something you are trying to convince heaven to send. It has already been released. This is where many people misunderstand the nature of divine movement. They believe blessings begin when circumstances change, when money appears, when doors visibly open. But in the spiritual realm, blessings begin moving long before the natural world reflects them. What you are waiting to see has already been set in motion. The question is not whether God answered, it is whether you will remain aligned while the answer is traveling toward you. Heaven does not respond slowly. It responds precisely. When your prayer was heard, a process began. Not always instant manifestation, but intentional movement. Things had to shift. Paths had to align. Resistance had to be addressed. Timing had to be arranged. And in that space between release and arrival, your faith becomes the bridge. Doubt weakens that bridge. Delay cracks it. Trust strengthens it. Action stabilizes it. Many people miss blessings not because God changed his mind, but because they changed their posture. They began in faith but ended in hesitation. They prayed boldly but waited passively. They believed initially, but allowed fear to rewrite the narrative while nothing seemed to happen. This is why Archangel Michael's message is urgent. Not because the blessing is fragile, but because your alignment matters more than you realize. There is a temptation to assume that if something is meant for you, it will arrive no matter what you do. That belief sounds comforting, but it is incomplete. Divine promises often require participation, not perfection, participation. The Israelites were promised the land, but they still had to walk. Peter was invited onto the water, but he still had to step out of the boat. The blessing moves, but faith meets it halfway. When you stop moving, you create distance where there was once alignment. You may be feeling discouraged because nothing has changed outwardly yet. But outward silence does not mean inward stillness. Heaven can be very active while your life looks unchanged. This is where maturity of faith is tested. Can you continue trusting without reassurance? Can you continue preparing without proof? Can you continue moving without applause? These moments refine belief into obedience. Archangel Michael's message carries strength because strength is what this season requires. Not emotional strength alone, but spiritual resolve. The resolve to stop second-guessing what you already know. The resolve to stop asking for signs when instruction has already been given. The resolve to move forward even if others do not understand your timing. What is moving toward you is not for everyone's approval. It is for your assignment. Right now, there is an invitation to shift from waiting mode into readiness mode. Waiting says, I'll move when I see. Readiness says, I'll move because I trust. Readiness prepares space. It clears distractions. It removes backup plans rooted in fear. When you prepare for what God has already released, you send a clear signal of agreement. Heaven responds to agreement. This is also why comparison is dangerous in this season. Looking at how others are progressing can distort your perception of timing. Your blessing is customized. Your path is specific. Your delays and accelerations are purposeful. What looks slow to you may be precise in heaven's eyes. But doubt born from comparison can stall what patience would protect. As you hear this, take a moment to examine where you may have paused unnecessarily. Where did you stop acting on what you once felt sure about? Where did fear quietly convince you to wait just a little longer? Awareness is not meant to shame you. It is meant to free you. The moment you recognize hesitation, you regain authority over it. And this is where you must choose engagement over passivity. If this message is speaking to you, do not treat it as background noise. Participate. Align. Respond. Let this not be another message you hear and forget, but one you act on. If this resonates with your spirit, make a decision to anchor yourself here. Take a moment now to like this video, because that simple action is a declaration of agreement. Share it with someone who may also be standing at a crossroads, because alignment multiplies when truth is spread. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, do so now, because staying connected keeps you positioned to receive what heaven continues to reveal. Your engagement is not just digital, it is spiritual. It signals attentiveness. It signals readiness. It says, I am present. I am listening. I am prepared. These small acts mirror larger obedience. Faith expresses itself through movement, even in simple forms. Remember this: blessings rarely arrive to distracted minds and divided hearts. They arrive where expectation hath been maintained. They arrive where faith hath been protected. They arrive where courage has been chosen again and again, even quietly. The blessing moving toward you is responding not only to your past prayers, but to your present posture. As we continue, you will begin to see how doubt subtly interferes with this movement, and why hesitation feels so convincing even when it works against you. But for now, hold on to this truth with clarity and calm. Heaven has already released what you asked for. Stay aligned. Stay ready. Stay engaged. What is coming is closer than it appears, and your next choice matters more than you think. Doubt is rarely loud. It does not usually announce itself as unbelief or rebellion. Instead, it speaks softly, disguising itself as wisdom, caution, or emotional self-protection. That is why it is so dangerous. Doubt does not tell you to stop believing in God. It simply asks you to wait a little longer, to question what you once knew, to postpone action until conditions feel safer. And in doing so, it slowly disconnects you from the momentum of what heaven has already released. Archangel Michael reveals that doubt is one of the most effective tools used to interrupt divine flow, not because it is powerful on its own, but because it feels reasonable. Doubt asks questions that sound intelligent. It urges you to reanalyze, to replay conversations, to revisit decisions you already settled in prayer. Over time, this constant reconsideration drains spiritual confidence. You may still believe in God, but you stop believing in your ability to hear Him clearly. That is where the blockage begins. The blessing moving toward you does not require perfect faith, but it does require sustained trust. Doubt fractures trust into pieces. One moment you feel certain, the next moment you feel unsure. This inner instability creates spiritual resistance. Heaven is consistent, but doubt makes you inconsistent, and inconsistency weakens alignment. This is not punishment, it is principle. A divided posture cannot receive what requires agreement. Many people do not realize that doubt often enters after progress, not before it. You take a step, then question whether it was the right one. You feel peace, then wonder if it was just emotion. You sense direction, then fear whispers that you misheard. This is why doubt feels so personal. It attacks after confirmation, not before. And if it is not confronted, it slowly convinces you to reverse course, retreat inward, or pause indefinitely. Archangel Michael's warning is clear. Hesitation born from doubt creates delay that was never assigned to you. Delay does not always cancel a blessing, but it can change how it arrives. What was meant to come with ease may arrive through struggle. What was meant to come with joy may arrive mixed with regret. Not because God changed his mind, but because fear changed the timeline. There is also a deeper layer to doubt that many overlook. That often stems from unhealed disappointment, past prayers that seemed unanswered, past risks that did not turn out as expected, past obedience that did not bring immediate reward. These memories create emotional resistance. The mind tries to protect you from repeating pain by urging caution. But spiritual advancement often requires moving forward without guarantees. Doubt feels like safety, but it is actually avoidance. When Archangel Michael speaks against doubt, he is not dismissing your experiences. He is calling you to rise above them. He reminds you that your past does not define your present authority. Yesterday's disappointments do not cancel today's alignment. But if you allow them to shape your decisions now, they gain power they were never meant to have. One of the clearest signs that doubt is interfering is prolonged stillness when action has already been instructed. You feel restless, unsettled, aware that something is unfinished. That discomfort is not punishment, it is signal. Your spirit recognizes misalignment even when your mind tries to justify it. The longer you ignore that signal, the louder it becomes. This is why awareness is crucial. The moment you recognize doubt, you can challenge it. You can ask yourself, am I waiting because God told me to wait, or because fear told me to pause? That question alone restores clarity. Heaven does not speak confusion. If your delay is rooted in anxiety rather than peace, it is time to realign. Doubt also isolates. It convinces you to internalize everything, to stop sharing, to stop declaring, to stop expecting. You become quiet about what you once spoke boldly, and silence weakens momentum. Faith grows when expressed. Doubt grows when hidden. What you refuse to confront internally will eventually manifest externally as stagnation. Archangel Michael's message calls you back into courage. Courage does not eliminate doubt. It moves despite it. Courage says, I may not feel ready, but I will not retreat. Courage interrupts the cycle of hesitation. And when you choose courage, angelic assistance is activated in ways you cannot yet see. Understand this clearly. Doubt does not mean you are failing. It means you are close. Resistance intensifies near breakthrough. The enemy does not fight what does not matter. If doubt hath been persistent, it is because what is coming carries significance. But you must decide whether doubt will be acknowledged or obeyed. One weakens you. The other strengthens you. As this part closes, Hear this with seriousness and hope. What comes next depends on how you respond to doubt now. Will you entertain it, or will you confront it? Will you delay again, or will you step forward even if your hands tremble? Hold on. What comes next changes everything, because you are about to learn how delay partners with doubt, and why breaking that partnership restores momentum immediately. Type "I trust God's timing" in the comments if this message is speaking to you. Blessing code 312 is now activated over your decisions and your discernment. This message is not reaching you by accident, and neither is the invitation I'm about to speak. Every time this word goes out, it becomes a seed that God uses to awaken, restore, and redirect souls who were moments away from giving up. Scripture says the harvest is plenty, and right now, you are standing in a field where light is breaking through doubt. As I speak, I feel led to tell you that when you give, you are not supporting a channel. You are fueling a river of truth that carries life to those who are dry and searching. I hear the Spirit say, "What you place in my hands, I will multiply back into your life with precision." If this message stirred your spirit, respond prophetically now through super thanks, channel membership, or a PayPal donation. The link and QR code are in the description. Let your giving become an act of obedience, not delay. I declare that every seed sown here will return to you pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing. Delay often looks harmless. It wears the face of patience, wisdom, and self-control. It convinces you that waiting is always the safer option, that postponing action is the mature response, that moving slowly protects you from mistakes. But Archangel Michael reveals a truth that is uncomfortable yet necessary. Not all waiting is holy, and not all delay is instructed by God. Some delay is subtle disobedience dressed as caution, and over time, it quietly erodes what faith was meant to activate. Patience and delay are not the same thing, though they are often confused. Patience is active trust. It continues preparing, believing, and aligning while waiting for God's timing. Delay, on the other hand, is passive avoidance. It stops moving, stops preparing, and convinces itself that inactivity is obedience. Patience listens for God's voice. Delay listens to fear. The danger is that delay feels reasonable, especially when the next step requires risk. Archangel Michael warns that delay drains spiritual momentum. Momentum is fragile. It is built through obedience, reinforced through consistency, and sustained through trust. When you delay what you already know you should do, momentum slows. When momentum slows, clarity fades. When clarity fades, confusion increases, and confusion becomes the excuse for further delay. This cycle is how many people remain stuck for years, even while believing in God sincerely. There are moments when God clearly says, "Wait." In those moments, waiting brings peace. It brings rest, assurance, and confidence. But when delay is not instructed, it brings restlessness. You feel unsettled, distracted, and internally conflicted. You may try to convince yourself that you are being wise, but deep down, you know something is off. That discomfort is not impatience, it is misalignment. Your spirit knows when it is resisting movement. One of the most dangerous aspects of delay is that it rarely announces consequences immediately. Nothing dramatic happens at first. Life continues. Days pass. This creates the illusion that delaying is safe. But over time, opportunities shift. People change. Circumstances evolve. What was once accessible becomes complicated. What was once clear becomes uncertain. Delay does not always close doors instantly, but it makes them heavier to open later. Archangel Michael brings attention to biblical patterns where delay cost people more than they expected, Moses hesitated in speaking, and years were added to a journey that should have been shorter. Saul delayed obedience and lost alignment with his calling. Jonah delayed responding and found himself in unnecessary hardship. These stories are not meant to condemn, but to instruct. God's mercy remains, but delay changes the route. Another hidden cost of delay is emotional fatigue. When you delay action, the mental energy required to keep revisiting the same decision drains you. You think about it repeatedly. You pray about it again and again, not for clarity, but for relief from the tension of indecision. It exhausts the soul. What could have been resolved through obedience becomes a prolonged internal battle. Delay also strengthens fear. Fear grows in stillness. When you do not move, fear fills the space with imagined outcomes, worst-case scenarios, and self-doubt. Action weakens fear because it replaces imagination with experience. Even imperfect movement teaches you something. Stillness teaches fear how to speak louder. Archangel Michael's message is firm because delay invites interference. When you pause unnecessarily, other voices gain access. Opinions, distractions, and external pressures begin to influence you. What God spoke clearly becomes blurred by too many perspectives. Delay opens space for confusion that obedience would have prevented. It is important to understand that immediate obedience does not require full understanding. God rarely reveals the entire plan at once. He reveals the next step. Delay often comes from wanting the full picture before moving. But faith was never meant to operate on complete visibility. Faith operates on trust. The desire for total clarity before action is not wisdom. It is control. Delay also sends a message to the spiritual realm. It signals hesitation. It signals uncertainty. Heaven responds to readiness, not reluctance. This does not mean God withdraws his love, but it does mean acceleration pauses. Alignment waits for agreement. When agreement is delayed, movement slows. You may feel convicted as you hear this, but conviction is not condemnation. It is invitation. Archangel Michael does not expose delay to shame you, but to rescue you from unnecessary struggle. The moment you recognize delay, you gain the power to interrupt it. Awareness restores authority. Ask yourself honestly, what decision have you been postponing that you already know requires action? Where have you been telling yourself later when the instruction was now? These questions are not meant to pressure you, but to clarify your position. Delay thrives in vagueness. It loses power in honesty. The truth is this: delay does not protect you from pain. It often prolongs it. Obedience may feel uncomfortable initially, but it leads to peace. Delay feels comfortable initially, but it leads to frustration. Archangel Michael calls you to choose courage over comfort, movement over stagnation, trust over control. As this part closes, let this settle deeply within you. Delay is not neutral. It either serves God's timing or it serves fear. There is no middle ground. Recognizing the difference is one of the most important spiritual skills you will ever develop. In the next part, you will hear why courage activates divine assistance and how Archangel Michael responds when you choose to stand firm. There comes a moment in every spiritual journey when courage is no longer optional. It becomes the doorway through which everything else must pass. Archangel Michael's call to courage is not symbolic or poetic, it is strategic. Courage is what activates assistance in the unseen realm. Courage is what signals readiness. Courage is what shifts you from being protected to being advanced. When Michael appears in moments of decision, it is because a battle exists that cannot be won through hesitation. Spiritual warfare does not always look like chaos. Often, it looks like indecision. It looks like exhaustion without explanation. It looks like knowing what to do, yet feeling strangely heavy when you consider doing it. This weight is not random. It is resistance. And resistance appears most strongly when a step forward would change your position permanently. Courage breaks that resistance, not by force but by alignment. Archangel Michael is known as a defender, a warrior, and a guardian. But what many do not realize is that his role intensifies when a person chooses to stand firm in obedience. Courage invites covering. It invites reinforcement. When you decide to move despite fear, despite uncertainty, despite past disappointment, you are not moving alone. That decision activates support that was waiting for your agreement. Fear often tries to disguise itself as humility. It tells you that you are not ready, not qualified, not strong enough. But courage does not come from feeling capable. It comes from trusting that God is capable through you. Archangel Michael's call is not asking you to rely on your strength. It is asking you to stop underestimating divine strength working on your behalf. There is a moment when fear must be confronted, not analyzed. Analysis gives fear time to negotiate. Courage cuts through negotiation. It says, "I will not wait for fear to leave before I act." This is where many breakthroughs are lost, not because people disbelieve, but because they wait for confidence to arrive first. Confidence often follows obedience, not the other way around. Archangel Michael stands with those who choose courage in unseen ways. The moment you decide internally, even before the external action is taken, a shift occurs. The atmosphere changes. Resistance weakens. Clarity increases. This is why courage is described as a trigger. It triggers movement that hesitation keeps locked. Understand this clearly. Courage does not mean the absence of doubt. It means the refusal to let doubt lead. Courage is choosing direction even while emotions argue. It is choosing faith while logic demands proof. It is choosing alignment while comfort urges retreat. This kind of courage is quiet, but it is powerful. Many people wait for a sign that they are protected before they move. Archangel Michael's message reverses that order. Protection follows obedience. Assistance follows courage. The decision to stand firm is the invitation. Heaven responds to motion, not paralysis. When you move in faith, you step into coverage that was already assigned. There is also a personal cost to avoiding courage. When you repeatedly choose comfort over conviction, you train your spirit to shrink. Over time, boldness fades. Initiative weakens. You begin to second-guess even small decisions. Courage, when ignored, does not disappear. It becomes regret. And regret is heavier than fear ever was. Archangel Michael's presence signals that what you are facing is not small. Courage is required because the outcome matters. Your obedience affects more than just you. It influences timelines, connections, and opportunities tied to your calling. This is why resistance has been intense. This is why doubt has been persistent. What you carry has weight. When you choose courage, you do not need to announce it. Heaven notices. Courage does not require validation. It requires resolve. The resolve to trust what God spoke even if others question it. The resolve to move forward even if support is limited. The resolve to stand when retreat feels easier. Courage also clarifies identity. When you act courageously, you begin to see yourself differently. You stop viewing yourself as someone who waits and start seeing yourself as someone who responds. This shift in identity strengthens future obedience. One courageous decision makes the next one easier. Momentum builds. Fear loses influence. Archangel Michael's call is firm because the window is active. Courage now prevents struggle later. Obedience now avoids complexity later. What feels risky today may feel obvious in hindsight. Most people do not regret acting in faith. They regret waiting too long to act. If you feel the weight of this message, it is because something within you is rising. That rising is not anxiety, it is readiness. Courage does not demand perfection. It demands willingness. Heaven can work with willingness. It cannot work with avoidance. As this part closes, let this truth settle deeply. Courage is not a personality trait. It is a decision. A decision you can make even now. Archangel Michael stands ready, not to push you, but to support you once you choose to stand firm. In the next part, you will see what happens the moment you act immediately, and how movement unlocks acceleration in ways delay never could. The moment you act immediately, something shifts that cannot be undone. Immediate obedience does not just move you forward, it releases acceleration. Archangel Michael reveals that when a decision is made without delay, heaven responds with speed that often surprises the mind. What took weeks of confusion suddenly becomes clear. What felt heavy suddenly feels lighter. What seemed complicated begins to unfold with order. This is not coincidence. It is alignment catching up with motion. There is a spiritual law at work here. Movement invites clarity. When you step forward in faith, even without full understanding, information begins to meet you along the way. Direction sharpens as you move, not before. Many people wait for certainty before acting, but certainty is often the reward of obedience, not the prerequisite. Immediate action interrupts confusion because it breaks the cycle of overthinking that feeds doubt. Archangel Michael emphasizes that delay creates drag, but action creates flow. When you move in agreement with what you have already been shown, resistance weakens. Obstacles that looked immovable begin to shift. Not because they were never real, but because they were never meant to stop you, only to test your resolve. Action signals readiness. Heaven responds to readiness with assistance. One of the most powerful results of immediate obedience is spiritual acceleration. Acceleration does not mean everything happens instantly, but it means unnecessary steps are removed. Detours caused by hesitation are bypassed. What would have required repeated lessons is resolved through one decisive act. This is mercy in motion. God shortens the journey when trust is demonstrated quickly. Immediate action also restores authority. When you delay, you unconsciously surrender authority to fear, circumstances, or opinions. When you act, you reclaim it. You stop reacting and start leading. This internal shift is critical. Authority is not about control. It is about alignment. When you align with divine instruction promptly, you operate from a position of strength rather than defense. There is also a psychological release that occurs with immediate action. The mental tension created by indecision dissolves. You are no longer trapped in endless internal debate. Peace returns, not because the outcome is guaranteed, but because you are no longer resisting direction. Peace often follows obedience faster than results do. Archangel Michael highlights that immediate obedience invites confirmation. Signs often appear after you move, not before. Resources service. Conversations align. Support emerges from unexpected places. These confirmations are not meant to convince you after the fact, but to encourage you along the path. They are reminders that you did not move alone. Another important effect of immediate action is momentum. Momentum is spiritual energy in motion. Once activated, it carries you forward with less effort than it took to start. The first step is always the heaviest. The second feels lighter. The third feels natural. Momentum does not eliminate challenges, but it reduces resistance. You stop pushing against the current and begin moving with it. Immediate obedience also teaches discernment. When you act on what you know now, you become more sensitive to what God speaks next. Delay dulls spiritual hearing because it trains you to ignore instruction. Obedience sharpens it because it reinforces trust. Over time, you become more confident, not because you are flawless, but because you are responsive. There is a misconception that acting immediately increases the risk of mistakes. In reality, prolonged delay often increases risk because it allows fear to distort perception. Fear exaggerates consequences. Faith clarifies them. Immediate action grounded in prayer is not reckless. It is responsive. It says, "I trust the one who spoke more than the uncertainty I feel." Archangel Michael's message also reveals that immediate obedience protects timing. Some opportunities are time-sensitive, not because God is impatient, but because other factors are in motion. People have choices. Circumstances evolve. Windows open and close. Acting promptly positions you within the window rather than chasing it after it shifts. It is important to note that immediate obedience does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it is a quiet decision, a conversation you finally have, a habit you finally change, a step you finally take internally. Heaven recognizes internal alignment as much as external action. The decision itself carries power. If you are waiting for confidence, act anyway. Confidence often arrives once you are moving. If you are waiting for peace, move anyway. Peace often follows obedience. If you are waiting for permission, recognize that instruction is permission. What you already know is enough to begin. Archangel Michael assures that when you move without delay, protection accompanies you. Not because you will avoid all difficulty, but because difficulty will not derail you. Assistance meets you at each step. Strength is renewed along the way. What felt overwhelming becomes manageable because you are no longer carrying it alone. As this part closes, let this truth anchor itself within you. Immediate obedience is not about rushing. It is about trusting. Trusting that God knows the path even when you do not. Trusting that movement is safer than stagnation. Trusting that what waits ahead is worth the step you are about to take. In the next part, you will begin to recognize the signs that confirm the blessing is close, and why the intensity you feel now is not a warning, but a signal of approach. As a blessing draws near, the atmosphere around your life often becomes more intense, not calmer. This surprises many people. They expect peace to increase before breakthrough, but often the opposite happens first. Pressure rises. Emotions surface. Resistance becomes noticeable. Archangel Michael reveals that these signs are not warnings of failure. They are confirmations of proximity. What you are feeling now is not regression. It is approach. One of the clearest signs that a blessing is close is internal tension. You may feel restless, unable to settle, aware that something is unfinished. This restlessness is not anxiety in its negative form. It is anticipation stirring beneath the surface. Your spirit senses movement even when your eyes do not see it yet. This creates a kind of pressure that demands response. Comfort decreases because stagnation is no longer an option. Another sign is unexpected resistance. Things that were once easy suddenly feel complicated. People misunderstand you. Plans face obstacles. Small issues feel exaggerated. This resistance is not proof that you are on the wrong path. It is often proof that you are on the right one. Opposition increases when progress threatens to break through. Archangel Michael makes it clear. Resistance intensifies when alignment strengthens. You may also notice heightened emotional sensitivity. Old fears resurface. Past disappointments come back to memory. Doubts you thought were resolved attempt to re-enter your thinking. This does not mean you are moving backward. It means unresolved layers are being exposed before advancement. Blessings that elevate you often require internal clearing. What rises now is coming up to be released, not to remain. Another sign the blessing is close is a sudden clarity about what no longer fits. Relationships, habits, environments, or mindsets that once felt acceptable begin to feel heavy or misaligned. You may feel a quiet but firm urge to create distance. This is not rejection. It is preparation. New levels require new boundaries. Heaven often removes what cannot go with you before revealing what will. You may also experience moments of unusual peace in the middle of uncertainty. Brief but powerful confirmations that you are not alone. These moments often come unexpectedly, in prayer, in silence, or even in ordinary activities. They are not constant, but they are precise. They serve as anchors, reminding you that despite the pressure, you are held. These glimpses of peace are signs that heaven is near. Archangel Michael also points to dreams, sudden insights, or repeated thoughts that carry clarity. You may find the same idea returning again and again, even when you try to ignore it. This repetition is not obsession. It is emphasis. When heaven repeats something, it is not because you did not hear it. It is because timing is converging. Instruction becomes persistent when action is required. Another indicator is a narrowing of options. Doors you once considered open quietly close. Alternatives lose appeal. You begin to realize that there is only one path that brings peace, even if it brings fear alongside it. This narrowing is not limitation, it is focus. God simplifies direction when complexity would delay obedience. You may also feel an increase in spiritual awareness. Messages resonate more deeply. Words carry weight. Truth feels sharper. Distractions lose their grip. This heightened awareness is preparation. It tunes your discernment so you can recognize the moment when action is required. Archangel Michael emphasizes that awareness increases before manifestation. It is important to understand that intensity does not mean something is wrong. Labor is intense because birth is near. Pressure builds because release is approaching. Many people misinterpret intensity as a signal to retreat, when it is actually a signal to lean in. The discomfort you feel now is not meant to stop you. It is meant to strengthen you. Another sign is urgency without panic. You may feel a quiet insistence that time matters, but without chaos. This urgency is calm yet firm. It does not shout, it presses. Panic comes from fear. Urgency comes from purpose. Learning to distinguish between the two is critical. Purpose-driven urgency moves you forward with clarity. Archangel Michael also reveals that confirmation often comes through alignment rather than miracles. Things begin to make sense. Pieces connect. Conversations align with what you have been praying about. These alignments may seem small, but they are precise. Precision is one of the strongest indicators that something is close. If you are experiencing multiple of these signs at once, pressure, resistance, clarity, urgency, and sensitivity, is not coincidence. It is convergence. Multiple signals appearing together mean the season is shifting. The blessing is not distant. It is approaching the point of contact. The danger in this stage is misinterpretation. If you mistake pressure for failure, you may retreat. If you mistake resistance for rejection, you may stop. But if you recognize these signs correctly, you will understand that perseverance is required, not reconsideration. Archangel Michael's message in this part is meant to stabilize you, to help you stand firm without fear. to remind you that intensity does not cancel promise. It often confirms it. What you feel now is not a reason to doubt. It is evidence that movement is happening. As this part closes, let this truth settle in you. The closer the blessing, the louder the noise around it. Do not measure your progress by comfort. Measure it by alignment. In the next part, you will hear about the cost of ignoring this moment and why postponing response now carries consequences that are heavier than you realize. Ignoring a moment of divine urgency always carries a cost, even when the cost is not immediately visible. Archangel Michael speaks soberly here, not to instill fear, but to reveal truth. When heaven highlights a moment and you choose to look away, something shifts. Not because God withdraws his love, but because alignment had been interrupted. What could have flowed naturally begins to require effort. What could have unfolded smoothly becomes complicated. The cost of ignoring this moment is rarely dramatic at first. Life continues. Responsibilities remain. Nothing collapses overnight. This is why many underestimate the danger. But beneath the surface, something begins to drift. Sensitivity dulls. Clarity fades. Emerian widen. What once felt urgent starts to feel distant. The fire that was meant to propel you forward slowly cools into hesitation. Archangel Michael reveals that postponed obedience often leads to prolonged struggle. When you delay responding to instruction, lessons repeat. Situations resurface in different forms. The same themes appear again and again until they are regressed. This repetition is not punishment. It is mercy. God keeps inviting you back to alignment. But each delay adds weight. What could have been resolved quickly becomes a long-term burden. Another cost of ignoring this moment is regret. Regret does not always come as sharp pain. Sometimes it comes as quiet awareness. You look back and realize how close you were, how clear the instruction was, how different things might have been if you had acted. This awareness can be heavy. Regret drains energy because it focuses on what cannot be changed instead of what still can. Ignoring this moment also affects confidence. Each time you choose delay over obedience, you train yourself to doubt your discernment. You begin to question whether you can hear God clearly. This self-distrust weakens future decisions. Eventually, even clear direction feels uncertain. What began as a single hesitation becomes a pattern of second-guessing. Archangel Michael warns that opportunities do not always return in the same form. God is gracious, but timing is precise. When a window closes, another may open later, but it may require more effort, more humility, or more endurance. Delay does not eliminate possibility, but it often increases cost. What was once light becomes heavy. What was once joyful becomes laborious. There is also a spiritual cost. Ignoring divine prompting can create distance in intimacy. Not separation, but dullness. Prayer feels routine. Worship feels dry. Not because God moved, but because sensitivity was compromised. Obedience sharpens intimacy. Delay numbs it. Over time, this numbness can be mistaken for spiritual burnout, when it is actually unresolved disobedience. Archangel Michael's message is firm because this moment matters more than you realize. Heaven does not speak urgency casually. When urgency is present, it means multiple factors are aligned. People, timing, resources, and protection are converging. Ignoring that convergence disrupts the flow. Realigning later is possible, but it requires rebuilding what delay dismantled. The other cost is missed momentum. Momentum, once lost, takes time to rebuild. Courage fades when unused. Boldness weakens when postponed. What once felt possible begins to feel intimidating. Fear grows in the absence of movement. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes to start, not because the task changed it, but because confidence did. Archangel Michael also reveals that ignoring this moment affects others. Your obedience is not isolated. It influences people connected to your calling, whether you see them now or not. Delay postpones not only your blessing, but the impact tied to it. Someone else may be waiting on the outcome of your decision without knowing it. This is why the message carries weight. It is not about pressure, it is about awareness. Awareness gives you power to choose differently. The cost of ignoring this moment is real, but it is not final. You still have a choice. Right now. This very awareness is mercy in action. If you feel conviction, do not resist it. Conviction is invitation, not accusation. It is God's way of saying, there is still time. But time is active. This moment will not remain highlighted forever. Clarity fades when unacted upon. The longer you wait, the quieter the signal becomes. Do not confuse God's patience with approval of delay. God is patient with people, but purposeful with timing. When He odds a moment, He expects response. Ignoring it does not cancel love, but it does complicate alignment. As this part closes, hear this deeply. You are not being threatened. You are being warned because you are valued. Heaven is invested in your outcome. The cost of ignoring this moment is too high because what is attached to your obedience is too significant. You'll be glad you stayed for what's about to be revealed, because the next part will show you how your words and declarations can realign what delay tried to disrupt. Type I choose alignment in the comments if you are ready to respond. Blessing code 618 is now activated over your timing and obedience. This word is moving because God is moving, and right now, He is gathering those willing to respond without delay. Every message released here is a seed of light, and when you give, you are placing oil into the lamp that keeps this fire burning for souls still searching in the dark. I hear the Spirit say, those who sow into my work in urgency will reap with acceleration. If this message strengthened you, act now through super thanks, channel membership, or a PayPal donation. The links and QR code are waiting in the description. Let your giving become a prophetic response, not a postponed intention. I declare that as you move quickly in obedience, heaven will move swiftly on your behalf. Your words matter more in this season than you realize. Archangel Michael reveals that alignment is not only about action, it is also about declaration. What you speak consistently shapes what you permit. Words are not neutral. They either open doors or reinforce barriers. When doubt and delay have tried to interfere, one of the fastest ways to restore alignment is through intentional speech that agrees with heaven rather than with fear. Many people pray silently but speak fear out loud. They ask God for provision, then declare lack. They ask for direction, then say they are confused. They ask for breakthrough, then speak about how stuck they feel. These contradictions weaken alignment. Heaven responds to agreement. When your words consistently oppose what you are asking for, you create internal resistance. Archangel Michael calls attention to this because speech is one of the most overlooked spiritual tools. Aligning your words does not mean pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing truth over emotion. Truth says, I am moving even if I am afraid. Truth says, God is working even if I cannot see it yet. Truth says, this delay does not define my future. These declarations do not deny reality. They shape it. Words spoken in faith create spiritual pathways that action can follow. Archangel Michael emphasizes that silence can be just as powerful as speech, but only when silence is intentional. Silence rooted in trust strengthens faith. Silence rooted in fear strengthens doubt. If you are quiet because you are listening, that is alignment. If you are quiet because you are uncertain, afraid, or discouraged, that silence becomes agreement with hesitation. Knowing the difference matters. Your words also influence your internal posture. When you speak courage, you reinforce courage. When you speak surrender, you reinforce trust. When you speak delay, you reinforce stagnation. Over time, your inner world begins to reflect what your mouth has been repeating. This is why Scripture speaks so strongly about the power of the tongue. It carries direction. Another critical aspect of alignment is speaking decisively. Big language reflects divided thinking. Phrases like maybe, someday, or if it works out often reveal internal hesitation. In this season, clarity in speech strengthens clarity in action. Saying, "I will move forward," carries different weight than saying, "I might try." Heaven responds to resolve. Archangel Michael also highlights the importance of declaring agreement out loud. Agreement is not passive. When you verbally align yourself with God's timing, you reinforce commitment. Saying, "I trust God's timing," shifts something internally. It reminds your spirit who is in control. It interrupts fear's narrative. Spoken alignment becomes spiritual resistance against doubt. It is also important to stop rehearsing past delays. Repeating what you did not do keeps you anchored to yesterday. My reflection can teach, repetition can trap. Archangel Michael urges you to speak forward, not backward. Speak about where you are going, not where you hesitated. Your future responds to forward-facing language. Words also prepare the environment around you. When you speak faith consistently, you attract confirmation. Conversations align. Opportunities surface. Support appears. Not magically, but strategically. Words shape awareness. When your awareness shifts, you begin to notice what was already present but previously overlooked. This is also why community matters. Surrounding yourself with voices that reinforce faith strengthens your declarations. Constant exposure to fear-based language weakens resolve. Choose carefully what you listen to and repeat. Alignment is fragile when constantly challenged by negativity. Right now, there is an invitation to participate actively. If this message resonates with you, do not remain passive. Engagement is alignment in motion. Take a moment now to like this video, not as a habit, but as a declaration that you agree with what is being spoken. Share this message with someone who may be struggling with doubt or delay, because shared truth multiplies strength. And if you are not yet subscribed, subscribe now so you remain connected to what heaven continues to release in this season. These actions may seem small, but they mirror a larger decision to stay aligned and engage. Your response matters. Engagement trains your spirit to respond rather than retreat. It reinforces attentiveness. It signals readiness. Heaven notices readiness. There is also a retention of momentum that happens through consistency. One declaration is powerful. Repeated declarations are transformative. You not say something once and abandon it. Speak alignment daily. Speak courage daily. Speak trust daily. Over time, these words will outgrow doubt. Archangel Michael reminds you that your words are seeds. Seeds do not produce overnight, but they do produce inevitably when planted consistently. Speak what you want to grow. Speak what you are becoming. Speak what you are stepping into. As this part closes, reflect honestly on what you have been saying about your situation. Are your words preparing you for blessing or preparing excuses for delay? Awareness here is key. What you correct now prevents struggle later. Hold this thought close. because what comes next will reveal how faith that moves before evidence changes timelines permanently. Stay with this, because the next revelation brings clarity that many people never reach, and you will want to hear it. Faith that moves before evidence is one of the rarest forms of trust, and yet it is the kind that heaven responds to most powerfully. Archangel Michael reveals that this level of faith is not about blind optimism or reckless behavior. It is about choosing alignment before reassurance arrives. Most people are willing to believe once they see results. Very few are willing to move while the outcome is still hidden. And that difference changes timelines. Waiting for evidence feels reasonable. It feels safe. The mind says, once I see progress, I'll commit fully. But spiritually, this posture reverses the order of faith. Evidence is not meant to leave faith. Faith is meant to invite evidence. When you insist on proof before obedience, you delay what obedience would have unlocked. Archangel Michael makes it clear, heaven responds to trust, not negotiation. Faith that moves before evidence often feels uncomfortable because it requires surrendering control. Control wants guarantees. Faith requires agreement. Control asks, what if this doesn't work? Faith asks, what if God already accounted for what I can't see? This internal tension is where many people retreat. Not because they don't believe in God, but because they struggle to believe without confirmation. Archangel Michael emphasizes that evidence often appears only after commitment. When you move first, clarity follows. When you step forward, provision meets you. This does not mean every step will feel successful immediately. It means each step activates the next piece of the path. Faith unfolds progressively. Evidence catches up later. There is a spiritual reason for this order. Faith that moves before evidence protects humility. If everything were visible in advance, pride would replace trust. You would rely on outcomes instead of obedience. By asking you to move first, God keeps your dependence rooted in relationship, not results. Many biblical breakthroughs followed this pattern. The sea did not part until the step was taken. The walls did not fall until obedience was completed. Provision did not appear until movement occurred. These patterns were not tests of bravery but demonstrations of trust. Heaven watches how you move when you cannot see the full picture. Archangel Michael also reveals that waiting for evidence can be a subtle form of fear. Fear often disguises itself as wisdom. It says, be careful. Don't rush. While caution has its place, excessive caution delays destiny. Fear demands certainty. Faith accepts responsibility without certainty. That acceptance activates divine partnership. Faith before evidence also rewires your inner world. When you choose to move without proof, you strengthen spiritual muscles that doubt weakened. You become less dependent on external validation. Confidence grows from obedience rather than applause. Over time, this makes you resilient. You are no longer shaken easily by delay or resistance because your trust is anchored deeper. Another important truth Archangel Michael highlights is this: evidence can mislead. Circumstances fluctuate. Feelings change. External signs can confuse. Faith rooted in instruction is more stable than faith rooted in observation. When you move based on what God spoke rather than what you see, you remain steady even when conditions shift. Faith that moves early also accelerates growth. Each step taken without evidence trains discernment. You learn to recognize God's voice more clearly. You become quicker to respond. Over time, hesitation decreases. Obedience becomes natural. This growth cannot be learned through observation alone. It must be practiced. There is also protection in moving before evidence. When you wait too long, opportunities can be influenced by fear, pressure, or outside voices. Acting promptly preserves purity of intention. You respond while conviction is fresh, not diluted. This protects alignment. Archangel Michael acknowledges that fear of making the wrong move is common. But he also reminds you that God is able to redirect a moving vessel. Direction is easier than stagnation. When you move in good faith, even imperfectly, God adjusts your course. When you remain still, there is nothing to adjust. Faith before evidence does not mean ignoring wisdom or counsel. It means refusing to let uncertainty paralyze you. It means choosing forward motion while remaining teachable. This balance keeps you aligned without becoming reckless. If you feel exposed by this message, it is because something inside you recognizes the truth. You have likely been waiting for reassurance that was never meant to come first. The reassurance was always on the other side of obedience. Archangel Michael's message invites you to reverse the order. Move first, then watch what follows. As this part closes, let this settle deeply. Evidence is not your leader. Faith is. When you allow faith to move first, evidence eventually follows with precision. In the next part, you will hear about the moment when decision seals destiny, and why crossing that internal line changes everything permanently. There is a moment in every spiritual journey when hesitation ends and destiny becomes sealed by decision. Archangel Michael reveals that this moment is not always dramatic on the outside, but it is unmistakable on the inside. It is the point where you stop debating and start committing, where questions quiet down and resolve takes their place. This is the crossing point, the place where doubt no longer leads and obedience becomes permanent. This moment is often referred to as the point of no return, not because God traps you, but because clarity replaces confusion. Once you cross it, you cannot unknow what you now know. You cannot unsee the direction that has been revealed. You cannot pretend you are undecided when your spirit has already chosen. This is the moment when alignment becomes identity. Archangel Michael explains that many people circle destiny for years without ever crossing this internal line. They stay close enough to feel the pull but far enough to avoid the cost. They believe but not fully. They obey but selectively. They move but cautiously. What holds them back is not lack of faith, but lack of finality. Destiny requires finality. Crossing this line changes how you move. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for consensus. You stop looking for escape routes. Decision closes doors behind you so you can walk forward without constantly looking back. This is not stubbornness, it is focus. Focus is one of the clearest signs that a decision hath been sealed. When this internal line is crossed, something shifts in the unseen realm. Archangel Michael reveals that resistance weakens significantly at this stage, not because challenges disappear, but because authority increases. The enemy loses leverage when decision is removed. Fear no longer has access to negotiation. Once you decide fully, fear must retreat or be confronted head-on. This moment also rewrites timelines. What was delayed by hesitation begins to accelerate. Not because God suddenly moves faster, but because you stop slowing the process. Alignment removes friction. Friction is what made the journey feel long. Once friction is gone, progress feels lighter even when effort is required. Archangel Michael emphasizes that this crossing often feels like relief mixed with seriousness. Relief because the inner conflict ends. Seriousness because you understand that this choice carries responsibility. You are no longer experimenting. You are committing. Commitment brings weight, but it also brings strength. Another sign you have crossed this point is peace that does not depend on circumstances, Even if challenges remain, the anxiety fades. You are no longer consumed by what if. Instead, you are anchored in even if. Even if things are difficult, you are resolved. Even if progress is slow, you are committed. This peace is not emotional comfort, it is spiritual stability. Crossing this line also clarifies boundaries. You begin to recognize what cannot come with you. Certain habits, relationships, or mindsets lose their grip. Not because you force separation, but because misalignment becomes obvious. What once felt tolerable now feels heavy. This clarity is not judgment, it is growth. Archangel Michael also reveals that once a decision is sealed, provision begins to align more consistently. Your sources follow commitment. Support follows clarity. When you stop wavering, others can see where you are headed. Alignment attracts alignment. A decision repels it. This is also the stage where excuses lose their power. You stop blaming circumstances, timing, or people. Responsibility returns to its rightful place, not as pressure, but as ownership. Ownership strengthens faith because it positions you as a participant, not a spectator. It is important to understand that crossing this line does not mean you will never struggle again. It means struggle will no longer define you. Challenges become part of the process, not reasons to stop. Failure becomes instruction, not identity. You move forward with resilience rather than retreating at resistance. Archangel Michael's message here is deeply personal. He reminds you that this crossing cannot be forced by others. No message, no encouragement, no warning can do it for you. It is an internal decision. But once made, heaven responds decisively. If you feel that something inside you has already shifted while listening, that is not imagination. That is recognition. You are not approaching the line, you are standing on it. The awareness you feel is the invitation to cross fully. Do not underestimate this moment. Many people reach it, feel it, and then talk themselves out of it. They step back into familiarity because commitment feels heavy. But the weight you feel now is not burden, it is significance. Your decision matters. As this part closes, hear this clearly. Once you cross this internal line, you will never relate to your calling the same way again. You will no longer wonder if you should act. You will focus on how to act wisely. In the final part, you will receive assurance, peace, and a closing prophetic release that confirms what has already begun within you. This is the moment where everything comes together, not in noise, but in assurance. Archangel Michael's message does not end with urgency alone. It ends with peace, clarity, and strength. You are not leaving this message confused or pressured. You are leaving it grounded. What you sensed throughout these words was not imagination. It was confirmation. A blessing is already moving toward you, and because you chose awareness instead of avoidance, alignment instead of delay, you are now positioned to receive it with clarity. Heaven does not reveal this much without intention. The clarity you feel now is evidence that something has already shifted within you. When inner resistance breaks, outer movement follows. You may not yet see the full manifestation, but you are no longer standing at the edge wondering what to do. You have crossed the internal threshold. That alone changes everything. Archangel Michael brings assurance here because assurance stabilizes what decision activated. He reminds you that you are not walking into the unknown without covering. You are not stepping forward unprotected. Divine protection surrounds what is done in obedience. Courage invited assistance, alignment invited peace, and now assurance seals the work that has begun. Let go of the need to control outcomes. Control was never your assignment. Obedience was. Outcomes belong to God. When you release the burden of managing results, you free yourself to move with confidence. Confidence does not mean certainty about every detail. It means trust in the one guiding you. That trust is what you carry forward now. There will still be moments that test you. That is not failure, it is refinement. Do not interpret resistance as reversal. What hath been decided internally cannot be undone by temporary challenges. Stand firm. When doubt whispers, return to what you know. When delay tries to resurface, remember what it cost you before. You are not starting over. You are continuing forward. Archangel Michael speaks peace over your mind. Peace does not mean inactivity. It means stability. You can move decisively without anxiety. You can progress without panic. You can trust timing without rushing. This balance is a gift. You're it. You are not behind. You are not late. You are right on time for this moment. Timing is not just about dates. It is about readiness. You are ready now in ways you were not before. That readiness was forged through awareness, confrontation, courage, and decision. Nothing was wasted. As you go forward, remember this. Obedience does not require perfection. It requires consistency. When you stumble, you get back up without shame. When you question, you return to trust without retreating. Growth happens in motion, not in stillness. Archangel Michael also reminds you that joy belongs to this journey. Do not carry obedience as a burden. What you are stepping into is meant to bring life, not exhaustion. Rest when needed. Celebrate progress. Acknowledge how far you have come. Gratitude strengthens alignment. You are not alone in this. Even when you feel unseen, you are supported. Even when progress feels quiet, it is real. Heaven does not rush you now, but it does walk with you. That companionship is assurance enough. Let this message stay with you, not as pressure but as grounding truth. You do not need to revisit the decision again and again. It has been made. Walk forward with calm confidence. What is moving toward you will meet you in its appointed time, and when it does, you will recognize it, not with surprise, but with peace. Type "I receive" with faith in the comments as a declaration of alignment. Blessing code 904 is now released over your path, your peace, and your next steps. This word has carried you to a place of decision, and now comes the sacred moment of response. Everything shared here is about releasing light where confusion once lived, and when you give, you become a carrier of that light to souls who are still waiting for clarity. I hear the Spirit say, "Those who build my work in obedience will never lack my provision." If this message anchored you, act now through super thanks, channel membership, or a PayPal donation. The link and QR code are in the description. Do not delay what your spirit is already willing to do. I speak blessing over every giver, declaring open heavens, restored strength, and accelerated answers. Give now, and let your obedience speak louder than words.